Now, earlier on this week I got an email from a chap called Carl, and he says, "Hey up, Dan, you alright?" And I says, "Yes, I'm fine, Carl." He basically offered me an opportunity to interview a band. Now, that band has joined us on the line. They are called the Golden Boys. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, there's a collective of them.
Yeah,
morning.
fantastic.
It was like a chorus of mornings. So, chaps, tell us a little bit about where the band started and the backstory of where you are from now. So, where did you form, etc.?
I don't know when it officially started, but the first Golden Boys gig, I think, was in Amsterdam, which would have been like 2011, when we did some busking around Amsterdam, and then got offered a gig and did just a really shit gig doing covers. I think we might have done When You're in Love. I can't remember. There was one really early prototype Golden Boys song in there.
And you can see that sense of humour translates in your music, because it is quite tongue-in-cheek and it is like a bit core blimey. So
what's the plan then with this, Tom? We're thinking we'll intersperse, so it'll be like a kind of like one of those classic rock documentaries, you know, like when they do classic albums or something.
Golden Boys. So tell us, chaps, in terms of your music and kind of your latest EP, which we're going to play after the interview, give us the composition of the band in terms of the members and the instruments you play.
Oh, okay. Yeah. How long have we got? there's about eight people in the band. We've got Tom on drums, Luke on bass, Dave on guitar, Gam on keyboards. I do the singing, and then we've got Spence on sax, Angus on sax, and Henry on sax.
To me, it's quite a fuck you band. You know, it's quite a, we're doing this. You know, this is what we're doing, and you know, get on board or forget about it.
It was a proper release. There was a definite payoff kind of emotionally from doing it, where you'd kind of like come off stage and then to have the night, whatever, the next few days, there was definitely a sense of having drained something.
I guess I tried to capture sort of elements of daily life and relationships and political undercurrents, but from a different angle, you know, in a way that it's not normally described.
The feedback was generally positive, but then part of me did think that there's no way it could have worked. Like, actually, I don't know. I'd be absolutely fascinated to watch it.
A coffee in the morning helps me to rise, and a pizza in the evening keeps me alive. But you know, you look edible. I could chuck you into a bowl and spoon you right into my mouth. Just give me a shot, 'cause I survive on a diet of your sweet, sweet love. I've tried, but nothing else. Give me that sweet, sweet feeling inside. So I went into this furniture shop the other day. The man came over and I started to say, I said, look, I've got this problem. With my...
It worked as just, you know, playing pubs and that kind of thing, or it potentially could have worked as like a kind of stadium band, you know, like high production, like proper like smoke machines and like full on proper gold suits, like real gold, actual gold suits.
it got to the point, I think, where we all were just clinging on for the ride, and we didn't really know where it was going, or what would happen, or even what was happening. I don't think we knew, or what had happened. I don't think we knew what had happened either. When it had.
All the other venues had closed, and we managed to get behind these 2 burger vans.
Last practice.
The atmosphere just felt like it was one of real excitement as to what the future was going to bring.
Is that a flash, Tom?
It's a video, right?
Video with flash?
Yeah. Oh, cool.
And it felt really solid, and everybody was up until sort of 4:30 in the morning. I saw a closeness, I guess, there that I think you do get an impression of when you're on stage, but yeah, the strength of the bond between everybody.
Okay, do you want to match that riff on the sax with that?
So tell us, chaps, in terms of your music and kind of your latest EP, which we're going to play after the interview, which is the City Gen. It's quite comical, tongue-in-cheek. Tell us a little bit about the rationale behind writing that as a piece.
I guess it's a little bit of a political song.
City Gen. I go to conferences and other city events. Jesus, how small is your flat? I'm 3 times the size and I live in the city of that.
It's just the story of a guy, a nasty guy, basically.
And you guys are originally from, is it Cambridge, and you're living in London? What's it like living in the big smoke?
Have a latte. But no eye contact, please. After work, I do karate.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I used to cycle through the actual city bit every day, so that kind of inspired the song, and like people kind of talking about like a friend of mine was serving coffee and like to city gents and all of this kind of stuff. So it all kind of feeds into it, I guess. In terms of gigs, on the 25th of September we've got one at Florippa in London near Old Street, which should be a banger, hopefully. And then after that we've got on 1st of November at Hootenannies in Brixton.
You must be the new intern, Jenny. Our company does very well, but you won't be seeing any. Our last intern, he was called Stephen. We had to let him go in the end though, because he wasn't breaking even, if you know what I mean.
Well, do keep us informed if you are coming up north, because we'd love to get you on and promote that as a gig. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I appreciate taking time in your busy schedule and agreeing to come on the Electric Breakfast. And do keep us posted with the developments, because I love your sound and I love what you guys are doing. And it's great that it sounds like a family more than a band, and that's important when it comes to music.
I think lots of elements of it look slick. I think any band who have a uniform of any description, that kind of looks slick and like quite measured.
Thanks for having us. Thanks a lot.
Absolute pleasure. That was the Golden Boys, and this is City Gent.
Come on, Jenny, the drinks are on me. Have another or I won't pay for your taxi.
People always used to talk to me about the band, and I always used to not understand what they were saying. People used to say things about why the gig was good, or like what they took from it, or what the whole thing was about, and I just never used to understand what the hell they were talking about. It was like they were talking about something completely different.
A permanent position at your company. Could be a valuable addition.
I think you have to be a certain type of person, or willing to let yourself go to a certain place to really to love it totally in the moment. People who would experience music were shocked by it.
I'll help you find all kinds of positions with me. 'Cause I'm a city gent. 'Cause I'm a city gent. 'Cause I'm a city gent. I'm a city gent.
I think we probably fell short of what we were trying to do, even though at the time I think we were always struggling to like get tighter and like transmit what we were trying to transmit harder and harder. But I think the ultimate slight failure in actually doing that is in hindsight definitely what made it. 9 boys dressed in sequins at best, all scrunched together on stage, you know, dancing around, playing this raw version of disco music, putting everything they had into a high intensity performance.
At that time, there wasn't really that vibe going on in mainstream culture, problematizing maleness or anything like that. And anyway, I think the Golden Boys were a bit of a critique of all of that anyway.
There's an anger being expressed in society there, but if we think back to the song, I don't know, the song is like ecstatic and finds joy and finds happiness and pleasure in totally debasing the city gent. And so your expression of disgust is converted into an expression of joy.
Well, from Dante, there would be a lot of eye contact with individual members of the audience. Dante would bend down to the level of the audience so that he could, you know, stare people in the eye and sing specific lyrics as if to that person, which is really quite sort of intimate. And I don't know whether this was intentional, but it was often not necessarily who you would think that he would choose. It wouldn't be the loudest or the most beautiful woman, or, you know, it'd be quite people that were obviously enjoying it, but maybe more shy individuals.
I think it was quite macho in its own way, sort of maybe macho, but also with a sense of campness. As I said, it wasn't just about the Golden Boys. We just happened to all be boys.
I wouldn't imagine that we were ever intimidating, although I suppose at times there were 8 or 9 of us on stage, but we were, I'd say we were leaning towards prancing about more than jumping about. For me anyway, I can't speak for the rest of the group, but the playing of the Golden Boys gigs is always filled with like excitement, tension and release.
That combination between it being generous the amount of energy and generous the amount of things that we were giving to people to help them enjoy themselves, like costumes and the music, but I think people found the energy and the commitment scary, genuinely.
The lights are on.
I remember reviews saying that people were scared because they were like, what are these people doing?
Meanwhile, in the flat
You know?
the piano plays out when you're in love. Bare feet stick to the floor. Out onto the roof with the open door. They took the woman upstairs away. She couldn't stand the heat one day. The man in white coat showed her to the door, to be heard in the heat of the night. More in the heat of the night. Outside in the city on the streets, downstairs under neon lights. Pull up a stool at the chance. 2 cubes in a glass when it passes in your hand as you drink your last. Joker kill, pop the black ball. Up your brow with a towel upstairs in the joints of the snooker hall. In the heat of the night.
We were so serious, you know, so serious, so committed, and if things weren't going right, we put everything into it. Everything was on the line, you know. And I think we maybe mistook people's joy for ridicule.
Maybe there was even a gig where I feel like there was a gig at a festival, we started with that, and then from then on, it was like 5 BPM by design, every song, until it just kind of absolutely exploded at the end. But then I suppose because we were drinking on stage as well, maybe that we just played it quicker because we got more pissed. I remember having to concentrate extremely hard on the playing because I wasn't that great at the guitar, and the guitar parts were fiddly and fast. So I don't even really particularly remember looking out on the stage or particularly around the stage. I remember being very kind of keyed in.
I think we were always yearning for just that ultimate building of momentum and energy, basically.
We were like pent up backstage stuff and then just exploding on stage. That must have been really strange to watch.
I think it was a lot more aggressive than we realised, and I think it was quite confrontational. But then it was dressed up in something which was very warm and entertaining and generous, which it was as well. We kind of upped the energy level to kind of, I think, compensate that, which ended up making it really raw. And I think that the fact that we knew that there was elements of failure in it made us want to do it even more. Because we were on a mission to like get better and better, you know. Like, but it was kind of degrading. I think watching some people try and be that entertaining and be so unpredictable.
There was just definitely that kind of complete freedom to do whatever you kind of fancied, whatever you thought would be appropriate. And that's not typical of all music.
The whole Golden Boys get up was like obviously ridiculous and like all sort of showmanship and like the gold curtains and the smoke machine and everything. But there would often be a period immediately before which had been kind of quite stressful, and sort of, you know, Dante messing something up or something, and Gam getting really angry like immediately before going on stage, which is a kind of strange sort of dynamic to the kind of sort of stage show that I guess most people wouldn't see beyond, but obviously occasionally that kind of came to the surface, which was kind of quite a sort of funny, I suppose, quite a funny dynamic to it. Well, there's two sets of brothers. I don't think that's quite an unusual thing, isn't it? It got out of control, I guess, every single time, didn't it? And then that just became what it was. I can't remember like having to concentrate on something, and as a result, I'd sort of look around, and it was just, you'd have like Angus and Spence and Henry with their shirts off, just like going for it on the saxes and whatever, like Dante would be doing, riding around the floor, and I'd be trying to remember what part I was supposed to be doing, and there'd just be this sort of sudden moment of like, what the hell was going on?
It got to the point where we started to get some celebrity fans, and I think people were trying to kind of understand what it was. Yeah, I think people enjoy ritual, you know.
Hello. Hi everyone. Hi, I'm Georgia LA, and I'm Gemma Kearney, and congratulations because you're all part of the problem. Oh my goodness me, we are back for a second series. I can hardly believe it.
often the consumption of music outside of festivals can be quite functional, especially when you're not playing big gigs. And so functional consumption of the Golden Voice, I don't think leads to full acquisition for the person experiencing it.
It was, I guess that was the closest we got to like the kind of mainstream. It was probably the most disappointing and like, in a way, least. We still had fun within it, but it instantly felt a bit less. Don't know. There was just some, yeah. There was something kind of strangling the fun.
Gather round.
And maybe you can sell out and not get paid.
Hello, I'm a city gent. I go to conferences and other city events. Jesus, how small is your flat? Mine's 3 times the size, and I live in the city of...
All good things in life take some risk, so accept the fact that there's risk. Don't let that scare you into not doing things.
Yes, Rob.
Thank you very much. It is quite hot tonight, isn't it? Yes, it is, I think. Right, it's hot up here anyway.
The set list sort of came to life. Then usually a few minutes before the gig or during the walk onto the gig, there would be a suggestion of absolutely changing everything about the set list.
When it gets to about 10 to 12 tonight, you're going to be asking yourself this question.
Because suddenly there was an idea in it that was just totally unthinkable. And, you know, the insult to everything the Golden Voice could possibly be. The band would suddenly be like racked by convictions of like truth and lies and heresy and things that were like totally legitimate and imminent 5 minutes ago were now like laughing stock and unthinkable. Then you'd go on stage.
We'd end up in strange gigs as well, right? So like, and then people didn't know what to think. People didn't know where to put us, and we were quite happy to just go in places where we weren't supposed to be.
Race across your eyes and feelings of lips you wish to kiss collide. Can you face it? Can you face it? Can you face the midnight? Can you face it? Can you face the midnight?
Lyrically and musically, it was incredibly saccharine and like romantic. Particularly at that age as well, being like young 20s group of lads, being like songs were all about love and like quite like playful and like very sweet. I think there's something quite nice about that. It's the easy alternative. It's just the kind of sludgy, kind of gritty, whatever, stereotypical rubbish.
With the other half, having a whale of a time, transforming each other's fashions into piles of clothes, cast aside on the floor. You find yourselves in a medieval barn, strewn out on the hay. The light from the Venetian blinds forming zebra print escalators rolling up and down your bodies. You find yourselves in a serene forest. The creak of ancient trees mingling with your exhalations unheard. You find yourselves in a city of the future, in its underbelly of undulating blue and red panels, shot through with feelings not yet invented. And you ask yourself this question. Disappear round corners to the place that's wrong. There's a churchyard in the center of town, a little green with no one else around. The only wall, an iron railing, away over it.
I think the confusion as a reaction to art is a regular reaction when the art hasn't been rendered gold, shall we say, by the establishment, so to speak. People, it takes a special type of person to say, I'm gonna make that leap. I'm gonna make that leap personally. They have to be in a really good place. They have to be in the right environment to experience music. Perhaps that's why Golden Boys often went over so well at festivals, because everybody's there and they've like opened themselves up to essentially an alternate lifestyle. Their nights are free and their mornings are sort of unhurried, and they're able to believe. People needed to believe to fall in love because nobody would tell you to love it.
There was something very approachable about the Golden Boys. Amateurish quality, I suppose. I think we were kind of undercutting our own importance quite often by doing things a bit differently and in a way that didn't look like we thought it was very important.
I think a lot of people thought that the band was a joke, to be honest. And I don't know to what extent people within the band thought that. I never thought that at all. I had no idea at all that anyone could have possibly read it that way. Because I thought it was, I was deadly serious. I mean, I think in many ways the joke was on us, to be honest. But not in a way that people were laughing at us. I don't think it was like that.
What would failure be anyway? Even when we did the opening gig for Festivali and there was like 2 people, we still went 100%. And there wasn't anyone really watching, but it was for us as well as whoever else was not watching.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to get lost in that sort of fanaticism, and I think it's when it's about something like that, I think it's very healthy. It's a fun fanatic. We were fun fanatics, I think.
It's definitely a good spirit to have towards anything, really. It's funny though, because like that's the kind of thing people say who then achieve like big like business success or life success. It was like if you give it 100% and you get like a big payoff. There was no payoff, but there was no like payoff that could have been. It wasn't designed for a payoff.
Who knows if the world needed it? I don't know. People weren't thankful for it that much at the time. It's almost, I think that people almost find it easier to look back on the Golden Boys and say it was great than they did to look at the Golden Boys during their period of existence and say this is great.
What was it? You aim for the moon, you hit the stars or something. Maybe it's the other way around, but it was something like that, I think.
Roll those golden dice. Click on any one you want to. It's alright, you're with the Golden Boys tonight. Slam down the lid, pull back the curtain. The sun's about to go. I need to change my luck, and that's for certain. There's a place that I know. Find my wheels somewhere around here. Wipe dust off the mirrors. Spin the wheels of fortune. Off into the night. Off into the night. Alright, John. You like driving? 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 Everyone likes driving. Everyone likes driving. The roads are full of cars. The roads are full of cars. We drive at night. We drive at night. Nothing's open. Nothing's open. There's nothing open road. Nothing's open. Nothing open road.
People did love it. People had a really visceral experience. Like, we did a gig probably like 2 months ago in Brixton, and someone came up to me and Gavin was like, "You and the Golden Boys," and he had seen us like 5-6 years before, and wasn't like, "Oh, that was such a laugh." He was like, "I fucking loved that band." Like, it was like in his head intense enough to be able to do it. Like, we didn't know him, we hadn't seen him since.
I mean, I think possibly there are subtleties there that you might not have realised the first time you saw them play. But certainly if you ever saw them play again, that would, I imagine, be much more pronounced. Maybe a dressing up into something else, you know.
Before his time, I don't think is really a is quite like maybe outside of his time or outside of time to some extent. It just sort of in the themes. It very much it would play with the future and the past, and I don't know. Yeah, being covered in gold is equally indicative of future space-age hoverboards in as much as it is 70s like indulgence.
This is the moment I live for. Down the fire escape, still feel the bliss. It doesn't do it for me unless we do it like this. This is the moment I live for. This is the moment I live for. Here at Kiev along my yawn, two naked bodies running free of the door. Philadelphian beat fell behind us on an orange light on a black taxi. Tonight we hit the big time, you and me. Tonight we hit the big time, you and me. Tonight we hit the big time, you and me.
I think it's impossible to say whether the Golden Boys are cool. I think they completely sidestep any scale in terms of cool or uncool.
Let's just say it was harder than it looked.
Oh man, everything was like at least 10 times as hard as it should have been with the Golden Boys. I mean, everything was stress. Everything was like the lugging, the gigs.
I just remember just the constant knowledge that at the end of the night, carrying those keyboards and hammers up like 5 flights was just, yeah, that was intense. That was a way bigger part than the gig. Like the effort and the time was in moving the items, and then you played for half an hour and then spend a long time considering how to lug it back, and then fulfilling the lug was hours and hours in total.
It's been a big long decade, time of debris and fire, but also winter all the time.
I think if it was laid out on paper in terms of lug to music, it's completely unreasonable and completely nonsensical. But it did feel necessary. Anything could feel like it was necessary, regardless of the logic. Yeah, the logical element of it was irrelevant if it could be explained in any way, which it always could.
Old agricultural days, you know, the harvest team were paid in beer. So yeah, in a way, the Golden Boys were like a beer drinking harvest team.
We have possibly the worst ratio of success to luck the band could hope to have.
At some point, I remember there being a question mark over the fact that we brought this like humongous organ and Leslie to every gig. Is it right that we take these big instruments? You know, what it came back to was, you know, joy through pain. You bring one of those instruments, you bring that organ, you bring the electric piano, and you know, you play the first note, and you realise why.
I mean, certainly looking back now, I can see that it wasn't as sort of joyous necessarily as it did appear on the surface.
I was sort of quite frequently surrounded by depression, and I wouldn't be surprised if a few other of the crew would hold similar feelings or would have been going through similar situations.
The smoke machine would break. Everything would get covered in smoke, liquid, and beer and sweat, and
I don't want to come across I don't want to come across as someone who found the whole experience painful. It was very tiring, and it was very draining to perform like that.
I was looking in this little cupboard under my boiler, and I saw this bag, and I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. And I opened it, and I almost vomited. Literally, I almost vomited.
I see you in every one I meet. Your mental blood still stains my shoes.
It was a struggle. The Golden Boys was a struggle. We were all struggling to try and. There was a lot of energy. Was being put in by everyone. The smell of the costume is something I'll never forget. I'll never forget.
I mean, ideally it would be great if musicians were better respected in England, and there was more funding available to support upcoming artists. That's one thing that's definitely lacking, I think, in England, and it's quite different when you go abroad.
I don't think I looked like with rose-tinted goggles. I think there were some serious flaws, but it wasn't to do with the music at all. I think everyone who heard the Golden Boys loved it, really.
Talking about it in the grand scheme of things, I think that's a difficult thing to pin down. I mean, at the time, to be honest, for me, it was just a good excuse to have fun, with my friends, and it was a great time to just be and enjoy life, I guess, through music and performance. And later on, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, the meaning, I don't know what to say.
I was drawn in by the idea of wearing a costume, and then the music was always secondary, and then it kind of changed and then went back to just the costumes, really. First we had the kind of like quite higgledy-piggledy, a lot of very tight gold plastic leggings. I think went down pretty well. And then we kind of switched to a more kind of gold sequins, maybe a touch of silver sequins. Then there was the Indian jacket phase. And then after that, there was the black sequin phase, which was probably at our most uniform. And yeah, so I think kind of the journey of the costumes kind of tells its own story.
Quite often at the end of the gig, it actually seemed like quite a special moment, everybody clearing up together, and was sort of potentially some time for the band to reflect.
Yeah, it was all part of this stance, which was, I wonder if intelligence is the right word, but there was a sort of sense of awareness. I think I was aware of how different we might have looked. I just mean to say there might be awareness. There might have been an awareness of that which was actually counter to the kind of naive presentation.
What does the Golden Boys mean? What does it? I don't know. I mean, it's very literal, because we wore gold.
The Golden Boys sound to me like it almost it sort of encapsulates something in time. Like the Golden Boys is suggestive of like a perfect moment. And so before I ever joined it, that was what it meant to me. I don't know for sure but I think towards the end of the band playing together, I think that I was the first to say that I'd left in one way or another. I don't really know what the rest of the conversations were like because all I did was call Dante and say, I'm not going to play with you guys anymore.
I think the costumes disintegrated before the fabric of the band disintegrated. I guess the balance between the payoff and the struggle shifted, and it became imbalanced.
Philadelphian moon sets behind us and an orange light on a black taxi. Tonight we hit the big time, you and me. Tonight we hit the big time, you and me. Time and place make such a difference, baby. Well, they do to me. I need that danger factor where we go back to. Here again, to the fire escape in no time at all.
It's interesting that was one of our later songs, isn't it, really? And maybe that was a direct reflection of feelings of where we wanted to aspire to. But actually, the big time, I think, was a trap.
There's only a certain number of times, I think, you know, in hindsight, you can get up on stage like that. I think there's a time and a place for it. And it didn't feel, I don't know, maybe we all grew up a bit.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So actually I reckon it'll be interesting to see how long this set is, because we've got half an hour sets at Latitude. I reckon we should do a different set first and second.
It's like a stand-up comic, you know. You often see stand-up comics, and they're really funny and kind of likable and entertaining and everything when they're doing their thing. But what it takes to do that, often comics aren't very happy.
I mean, what we need with sets, not. Yeah, that's like.
There was something simple about the message. It was a generous act, and I don't think there was any irony involved. There was no darkness in the Golden Boys, really. There was sadness and there was pain, but there wasn't like a cynicism. And that seemed to me to be refreshing and welcome. Maybe taking care of a heritage of music, of songwriting, and a style of sincerity. I hope I'm not contradicting what I said earlier about sincerity. A style of like sincere, almost a naive songwriting.
We can't put another song. I think it's so close though. It's so close. I think it's further than it seems, because we had a little going. Anyway, let's talk about it.
I always got the impression that the songs were written from real life events, you know, and real feelings from things that have taken place. Stuff that had already been lived through.
I don't want to say ahead of our time, but out of step with the times. I think we thought we were in step with the times, you know. But I think now.
The thing is, I reckon we should get our songs and work out.
I think the things which we were trying to get at, I think people are ready to get at these things now. It's a bit more.
I think we should just play every song we've got, so we can talk about this set for half an hour.
Yeah.
We're talking about flavours. We're going to argue over what's disco and what's Latin.
It's unbounded joy, you know. I think we were at a time.
All of our songs in it. Yeah.
the world was a little bit easier then. I think. I think especially for a lot of us in the band. I think life is simpler. The world is a simpler place.
And also, there's some songs which we just can't follow other songs with, like Hard Love.
But as a result, I think the music. I think music took itself a little bit more seriously at that time. And I think now. I think. Now that the world is, you know, it's in existential crisis, pretty much. Climate crisis, coronavirus, obviously. The kind of political crisis, which is basically what it is in this country. The kind of the failure of populism, the failure of capitalism, all of these things are kind of the climate now, and I think the humour and the irreverence and the joy that the Golden Boys represented, I think, would be really. I think it would be better placed now.
You know, when you're in the band and you're in the moment, you're just experiencing what, for all intents and purposes, seems to be a random series of coincidences, events and distractions, and
it's still last night.
Just arriving and you sort of watching them go past or letting them smack you around the face before you move to the next thing.
In a moment, with a corner of a mouth or a length of a look.
It's interesting to just take the time to think about it.
Look down, and it feels like bliss, and it feels like torture, and it feels like a dream, and it feels like.
Well, I think, you know, it's what big feeling encapsulates. It's that bottle of distilled big feeling. It's the big feeling.
You can read it as a parable for the whole Golden Boys' existence. Maybe you could say that all the other songs had already were sort of talking about this like wonderful big feeling, but perhaps it's when the expression of the idea of big feeling had finally come to its zenith, and it had been distilled down to the point where you simply had to say big feeling, and it made sense. Maybe it was the end of all the ideas surrounding that.
Sometimes it feels like you're being peeled off your life like a sticker. The air you're in getting thicker. The passenger seat, departing car.
The big group of people, you know, we met lots of people along the way, and they all contributed to the Golden Boys. You know, it's a two-way process. Well, I shouldn't say two-way, it's a sort of infinite way process.
Still a blur. The day's still young. And it's still last night. The feeling's just begun. And it feels like bliss. And it feels like torture. And it feels like a dream. And it feels like
big feeling. Feels so good. Big feeling. Feels so strong. Big feeling. Feels so right. Big feeling. Feels so right.
Everyone has their own view of things individually, but really, like, the Golden Boys was a collective. It was a band, and we did everything together. It was a pretty collective feeling.
There's a band who gave it everything and built a world and really made a lot of music and shared it with a lot of people and never experienced significant success and just ended up folding.
It is basically impossible to get a big band to work without there being like a kind of like dictatorial figure, but there wasn't. I think that's what's kind of remarkable, is that it was like a 9-piece band with basically complete involvement from everyone involved. That's quite a strange collection of people that can do that.
It was an anarchic sort of an outfit in a way. You're going to hit some limits, but as I said, on the other hand, there's so much freedom for us as members. I felt to be my dysfunctional self. Like, I never got picked up on, the fuck ups.
But I just got on the golden bandwagon and never really questioned it too much. Quite a good festival band.
Who knows? Maybe they haven't gone anywhere. You can take away the sparkly jacket, take away the organ, but you can't take that away.
Shadows long in the night, disappearing round corners to the place that's right. There's a churchyard in the centre of town, a little green with no one else around. The only wall, an iron railing, away over it easily.
Good use of time, I think. Yeah, good use of time.
By the end, I was in the crowd watching the Golden Boys, and it was brilliant.
Ill-fitting suits, not often worn lace. We're gathered here together today to hold up the hastily printed booklet and sing in dismay. Sad song at the how the guy looked. Oh, dude. The distinctive moustache and the route he always took. He used the same bank as you. Oh, you once lent him a book. Our recollections become one as the organ